Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz this morning picked up an important endorsement. It came from his former rival, Jeb Bush. He's also celebrating a win yesterday in Utah's caucuses, but the candidate is facing a backlash this morning over the proposal to target Muslim Americans after the Brussels attack. He said, quote, "We need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized." Senator Cruz joins us now in Studio 57. Senator, welcome back.
Good morning, Charlie. Good to be with you.
We want to talk about Muslim neighborhoods and what you mean, but first, here is what Police Commissioner of New York, Bill Bratton, said this morning on this program. Here it is.
Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Being quite frank with you, I took great offense at that statement. I have almost 1,000 Muslim officers in the NYPD. Ironically, when he's running around here, we probably have a few Muslim officers guarding him.
So what do you say to that?
Well, listen, it's not surprising that the Democratic political henchmen of Mayor de Blasio are coming after me, and that is on the instructions of Mayor de Blasio. And
it couldn't be because he simply thinks that patrolling Muslim neighborhoods is a bad thing to do in the interest of New York?
Boy, you know, it would be striking if his position is that we shouldn't patrol Muslim neighborhoods and patrol every neighborhood. Listen, yesterday we saw a horrific terror attack in Brussels. And our prayers this morning are with the families of those murdered, of those wounded. But what is important is that was not a lone wolf. It wasn't an isolated attack. It was radical Islamic terrorism. It was ISIS that has declared jihad, that is waging war on us. And President Obama and Hillary Clinton, and sadly, Mayor de Blasio, the elected Democrats, are so bound up by political correctness, they refuse to utter the words radical Islamic terrorism, and they refuse to be serious in defeating
But the point is, you're suggesting that they should focus on Muslim neighborhoods more than any other neighborhood.
Look, New York City, under Mayor Bloomberg, had a program that focused on, worked proactively with the Muslim community to stop radicalization, to prevent attacks from radical Islamic terrorism before they occur. Now, what happened? Mayor de Blasio came in and decided political correctness mattered more than keeping people safe. He disbanded the program. Let me give an example. If you're concerned with gang violence is a real problem in a lot of places across the country. What does law enforcement do with proactive policing? You go into the neighborhoods where gang violence is a problem and you work proactively to get the gang members off the street. And by the way, the people you're protecting are the residents of those communities who are typically the victims. With gang violence, it is often African Americans and Hispanics. It's low-income Americans who are often the victims of those violence. And by having a serious police presence there, you are protecting those communities. The same is true in the Muslim community, where radical Islamic terrorists, they don't just murder Christians and Jews, they murder other Muslims as well. And we need to fight and defeat radical Islamic
Senator,
terrorists.
you know that surveillance program was in effect in New York. It has been disbanded, as you mentioned. You also know it didn't lead to any leads, any intelligence tips. They said it didn't work.
It is true that the de Blasio political henchmen say that. And it's also true that the NYPD said it provided valuable intelligence. And I'll tell you, as I travel the city of New York and as I travel the country, police officers over and over again stop me and they say, "Thank you for standing up and having my back." You know, there was a moment here in New York.
This raises a lot of civil liberties concerns. Let me ask you, how many Muslims are in America?
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
So you're saying that law enforcement should surveil a number of Muslims, and you don't even know how many Muslims are in America?
What I'm
saying...
saying...
There are 3 million Muslims in America. Law enforcement is overwhelmed.
So you're saying we can't defeat radical Islamic
We have a
terrorism?
chief of police, one of the most respected chiefs of police, who was here earlier, who said there are no Muslim neighborhoods. It's not like Europe. It doesn't exist that way. It's impractical what you're suggesting. Also, it doesn't suggest it would lead to anything. It's more of a political point that you're making.
Nora, actually, you brought up Europe, and it's a good example. If you look at the attack in Brussels, it's a direct result of the failed immigration policies in Europe that have allowed vast numbers of radical Islamic terrorists to come to Europe. And they've been ghettoized in neighborhoods that have become isolated, that have become separate, and they become incubators for radical Islamic terrorism.
That's not a similar problem that we have here in the United States.
Of course it is. There are communities in America.
Name one community, one city, where we have a large group of radicalized Muslims.
You have communities. You have communities, for example, in Minnesota. You have communities in Michigan with heavy concentration, and you have incidences of radical imams preaching jihadism preaching Islamism.
But,
Now,
how about this point of view? There are so many people that say that your comments are decidedly anti-Muslim, and that you're playing right into the hands of ISIS, that you're giving them ammunition to come after us, to really take action against us. That you're just teeing it up for people to come after us.
Gail, with all respect, people are fed up with the political correctness of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. We're following the Paris attacks, following San Bernardino, and no doubt following Brussels. President Obama goes on TV. He will not say radical Islamic terrorism. Instead, he lectures Americans on Islamophobia. Enough is enough. Islamism is a political and theocratic philosophy that commands its adherents to wage violent jihad, to murder infidels, which they define as everybody else.
But you're painting one community with one brush. That's the problem.
No, I'm not. There's a difference between Islam and Islamism. Islamism commands that you either murder the infidels or you forcibly convert them, you wage jihad. And here's the consequence of President Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bill de Blasio refusing to acknowledge what we're fighting. You end up with policies that don't keep us safe. So, for example, President Obama and Hillary Clinton both still support bringing tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees to America. That is despite the fact that ISIS has said they intend to infiltrate those refugees with jihadists that are here to murder us. And despite the fact that the head of the FBI, James Comey, who was appointed by Barack Obama, said they cannot vet those refugees to make sure they're not ISIS terrorists. The first obligation of the president as commander-in-chief should be to keep America safe. And I'll tell you this, I will apologize to nobody for how vigorous I will be as president, fighting radical Islamic terrorism, defeating ISIS, and keeping America safe.
On the question of your chances to become president, you got an endorsement from Jeb Bush.
Sure.
Does that give you a pathway, you think, and what is that pathway to get the nomination?
Well, I'm very grateful to have the support of Governor Jeb Bush, and it's an indication of what we're seeing nationally. We're seeing Republicans uniting behind our campaign. You know, last night we had a tremendous victory in the state of Utah. We were very much hoping to break 50%, which would give us all the delegates. Not only did we break 50%, we ended up with a landslide of 69%, nearly 70%. And what we're seeing is we're seeing Republicans uniting behind our campaign because we are the only campaign. Utah is now the 10th state where we've beaten Donald Trump. And, you know, Charlie, it's interesting. In the last 10 days, we've been endorsed by Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, Mike Lee, and Mark Levin. Now, you want to talk about the broad spectrum of the Republican Party. That is the entire ideological spectrum. And what we're seeing is Republicans uniting behind this is the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump over and over again and that can and will beat Donald Trump.
We have about 8 seconds, so I'm only to say thank you.
Yes, thank you, Senator Cruz, for being here.